first week of June was extremely active with severe weather across the state, and that was the same exact story this past week as numerous rounds of strong and severe thunderstorms pushed through the state along with flooding rainfall. So far in the month of June, more than a dozen tornadoes have been reported across Texas. You're looking at some video of those tornadic storms that developed in the Panhandle earlier this month. The strongest tornado so far this month was an EF2 tornado in Morton, Texas, with winds of 125 miles per hour. The twister was also a mile wide. Severe thunderstorms plowed through the big country late Sunday night. 2 tornadoes were reported outside of the Abilene area, along with 80 to 90 mile per hour straight line winds. Major damage was seen at KTexas, a news station located in Abilene. The straight line winds destroyed the station's tower and caused the garage to cave in and blew off the studio's roof. And strong storms also hit in San Antonio. Local authorities say 5 people died in floodwaters and more were rescued from trees in high water. More than 6 inches of rain fell overnight Wednesday, creating very dangerous scenes like you're seeing now. Well, everyone, welcome to Weather Extra. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Jillian Johnson. As you just saw, it was a busy week of weather across Texas, including right here at home in Central Texas. To recap the wet and stormy weather from the past week, we bring in First Alert Meteorologist Sean Bellafiore. Sean.
Downpour after downpour this week across Central Texas, and let's take a look at some of the numbers and count the waves. We had 1 wave move through early Monday, kind of a second wave midday. There's a 3rd wave right there, a 4th wave right there, a 5th wave right there, and that was about it. 5 to 6 big rounds of rain over the course of a week for Central Texans, and over time, of course, that rain really did add up. Early part of the week, we did see some pretty heavy rain, 1 to 2+ inch totals, but it was really Wednesday and especially Thursday that we saw the lion's share of that rain. Some of the estimated totals very high around Coryell County, between about 9 inches and up to a foot. Gatesville down to Pidcoke is where we saw most of that rain. The highest totals in Milam and Robertson County were between 6 and 10 inches, and about 4 to 6 of this fell in just a 3-hour time frame early Thursday morning. Another very high swath of rain totals stretching from west all the way to I-45, over a foot of rain over a couple of days' time in parts of Navarro County, and that's not including the extra rain that fell just a few weeks earlier than that. It's all thanks to an upper level low that was moving its way very gradually into the state and got stuck for Wednesday and Thursday, giving us that high coverage of the rain. But it was Thursday that the low made its closest approach and ran into a bunch of water. This is a look at the map. We call it atmospheric moisture, but it's actually called precipitable water. It's a measure of how much water is in a column of the atmosphere if all of that were to fall as rain. And in Central Texas, we had between 1.6 and 2.3 inch PWatt values. That's the acronym for precipitable water. So you may be wondering, 2.3 inches, we saw much more than that. Well, the reason why, south winds were feeding into the system on Thursday, feeding moisture in, giving more moisture to those storms, not dropping those precipitable water values until the system departed. Reporting in the studio, Sean Bellafiore, KWTX News 10.
You're hearing the powerful rushing waters at Tocqueville Falls, the city park in Crawford. As you just saw from Sean, very heavy rain fell throughout Central Texas last week, causing water levels to rise quickly, like you're seeing now in Crawford. Those floodwaters caused this park to close over the weekend. But just last year, the park was actually closed due to low levels of water. And Fauntleroy Park in Gatesville also saw flooding from the heavy rain this past week. The heaviest rain fell Wednesday night into Thursday morning, which caused this flooding that you see on your screen. The park is located along the banks of the Leon River. And take a look at this video shared by the Bell County Sheriff's Office. This is the rushing water at Nolan Creek near downtown Belton. This flooding was also caused due to that heavy rain that fell Wednesday night. It's also the same story out in Limestone County last week, as you can see this video here showing the overflow of the Navasota River. The road is covered by water, and you can see how high it is with the speed limit sign peaking above the water. Those strong storms that dumped all that heavy rain at once across Central Texas had local first responders busy early Thursday morning. Authorities rescued a young man who was stranded in his pickup truck in McGregor this past Thursday. You're looking at video of that rescue. Waco Fire tells us that the young man drove through a low water crossing near Indian Spring and South Loop Drive. The McLennan County Sheriff's Office, Waco Fire, and a full water team, a rescue team that is, used a ladder truck to get him to safety. Now we know all this rain at once can be dangerous, as you just saw, but it is great for area lakes as we head into what is of course the hottest and driest time of the year. For an update on Central Texas lake levels and current drought conditions, we now turn to First Alert Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor.
Well, as expected, the recent heavy rain has had a big impact, not only drought conditions across Central Texas, but lake levels and some of our creek and river levels as well. I want to take you back to May 1st, where we had moderate drought conditions across a large portion of Central Texas, and then more extreme and exceptional drought down in the hill country. But throughout the month of May, and particularly for the first part of June, big improvements. No drought concerns across the majority of Central Texas. Still a little bit down to our south and west, but one thing to keep in mind, these drought conditions were set on Tuesday. They update the numbers on Thursday, and it doesn't take into account all of the rain we've seen. So we'll likely see even more improvements in next week's drought monitor that comes out. But down to our south and west, San Antonio, and particularly as you get down in the Big Bend area, still extreme to exceptional drought, but Central Texas in much better shape. Lake levels have gone up a good bit as well. 3 of our 4 area lakes not only at 100%, but actually above normal capacity. Lake Waco, Whitney, and Lake Belton all 1 to nearly 2 feet above their normal elevations. Stillhouse Hollow is below normal, but still sitting pretty good, just 1.5 feet roughly from where it should be. We've seen some rivers spike. River flooding usually takes a little longer to clear off compared to just flash flooding concerns that we see. But the Navasota River, the Leon River, the Little River, parts of the Brazos and Trinity have all seen some flooding concerns at times, and I want to show you what that could look like. This is Tonquah Falls near the Crawford area, a very popular swimming hole that has definitely seen some flash flooding there. And we always tell you, turn around, don't drown. This is a perfect example. A road washed out in Freestone County from some of that high water. So we need the water, but we got a lot in a very short amount of time.
Although last week was cooler thanks to that much needed rainfall, the official start to summer is right around the corner. Summer officially kicks off this Friday, June 20th at 9:42 at night. Now, summer is all about the heat here in Central Texas, and for more on the warmth we've seen so far this year, what we see on average during the summer months, we bring in First Alert meteorologist CD Finley, who has more on that.
Well, we're heading into the month of June already, and so far we've seen our fair share of 90-degree days in 2025. Nothing in the way of triple digits just yet, but this is how it kind of shakes out for the Waco, Temple, and Killeen areas. Of course, Waco's numbers coming from the Waco Regional Airport, Temple coming from the regional airport down there, and the Killeen's numbers coming from Fort Cavazos. Again, 10 days of 90-degree heat in Waco and Killeen for the month of May. Killeen, however, the earliest area to hit 90 degrees in Central Texas so far, with 1 day back in February. So far for June, sitting at 8 for Waco and Killeen, respectively, 7 days of 90-degree heat in Temple. Of course, these numbers are actually likely going to change as we head further into the month, and that leads so far to a total of 23, 22, and 26 respectively, with an average first 90-degree day of May 31st. So that's why we kind of see that trend in the numbers kind of heading into the month of May as they increase. What we've noticed is that we're starting to see those 90-degree days a little bit earlier on in the year. So far, these are the highest numbers highest temperatures we've reached so far this year, the highest of which is 99 degrees in the month of May down in Killeen at Fort Cavazos. 96 degrees the highest that Waco and Temple have hit so far. And again, as we head further into the summertime, those average monthly highs are going to continue to rise, kind of peaking right there in the month of August and eventually cooling down by the time we head into September. So as we start to warm up over the next few weeks, remember your heat safety tips. Never leave kids or pets unattended in vehicles. Always drink plenty of water. Take frequent breaks in the AC, and also wear light colored clothing.
Wildfires have been raging across Canada since last month, and straight ahead on Weather Extra, we see how it's impacting air quality right here in the United States. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Since mid-May, hundreds of wildfires have erupted across western Canada. The combination of warm temperatures and ongoing drought have helped fuel these fires, which forced thousands to leave their homes and killed at least 2 people. According to the latest North American Drought Monitor, nearly half the country is in a drought, with the driest regions being located in the provinces of Alberta and British Columbia. Local forecasters say because of the dry winter, it's likely going to be a very bad forest fire season. So far, over 5 million acres have been burned burned in Canada since the start of the year. Authorities have also been monitoring fires that have rekindled since the historic fire season of 2023, which, if you don't recall, burned more than 45 million acres across the country. And those wildfires created scenes like this. Hazy orange skies were captured by local residents in Saskatchewan as the fires raged off in the distance. The resident who captured this video said the only way to evacuate was by boat, but strong winds and choppy waves made it unsafe for him and his family to leave the region. And these were scenes in the northern United States earlier this past week due to the smoke from the ongoing fires in western Canada. Air quality alerts were issued on Monday for all of Minnesota. Hazy skies and poor air quality also impacted the Dakotas, Montana, and even across the Great Lakes. And it's been 5 months since those devastating wildfires erupted around Los Angeles. They burned for 24 days, wiping out entire neighborhoods and communities off the map. CBS's Elise Preston is in Altadena with more on the challenges of rebuilding.
There's nothing here.
Charles Bryan and his family have called this land in Altadena home for 23 years.
The main interest that people use to the house is over here. This is devastating.
His house, one of more than 11,000 destroyed 5 months ago in the Palisades and Eaton fires.
I did grieve a little bit, but then it was like, okay, let's keep going.
What has the process been like to rebuild?
The process is cumbersome.
Rebuilding has been frustrating and expensive, some permits costing upwards of $50,000.
In this case, because it's an emergency, these permit and plan check fees should be eliminated, but the county has not done that.
Altadena fire victims want the county to waive fees just like the city of Los Angeles did for homeowners in the Palisades fire zone. But getting a permit has been slow. So far, just 22 out of more than 700 applications have been issued.
They need to find a way to speed up this process of approval.
Bureaucracy and the expensive rebuilding are leading some homeowners to walk away and sell. But Bryant remains hopeful.
I have to be positive about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the house built one way or the other.
For sale signs are all over Altadena. So far, 145 lots have already sold, with dozens more listed. Elise Preston, CBS News, Altadena, California.
Last year, the United States had dealt with a few major solar storms, which impacted satellites and other forms of technology. And straight ahead on Weather Extra, we'll learn more about these solar storms from a forecaster from the Space Weather Prediction Center. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Major solar storms impacted the United States last year, which had an effect on technology right here at home. And in this week's Degrees of Science, we speak with a forecaster from the Space Weather Prediction Center about what exactly space weather is and what goes into forecasting these solar storms.
We're talking today with Sean Dahl. He's from NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. So, Sean, I guess right off the bat, what exactly is space weather?
It's really what's taking place in the sun 93 million miles away, what's going on in that huge vacuum of space between the sun and the earth, and ultimately at here and around our planet, because space weather does affect our way of life, especially in the forms of technology that we rely upon so much in today's world.
So you work with the Space Weather Prediction Center. What exactly is your role when it comes to forecasting and preparing for these space weather events?
And we are the nation's official source for space weather forecasts and information, watches, warnings, and alerts, that kind of thing. As far as the general public and the technological sector's interests go, we have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. As part of it, it's our forecast office. So somebody's always staffed in there, just like any terrestrial weather forecast office or the Weather Service staffs, because the sun can do something at any time, regardless of whether we're in solar maximum like we are now, or in the deeps of solar minimum. The sun can still provide activity, which can be quite significant, and in the worst case scenario, really be quite dramatic or catastrophic to some of the infrastructure that we rely upon today.
What exactly causes one of these solar storms to happen?
For geomagnetic storms, these magnetic disturbances, we rate them on a 1 through 5 scale. We get to those levels of significance, so that's minor up to the extreme end at the G5. There's other things that can cause them, but coronal mass ejections are the main feature. That's the thing that can really get us to the top ends of the scale on that G scale. And they are explosive releases of billions of tons of solar material and a strong localized magnetic field that stretches out into space all the way to Earth. That's what causes a geomagnetic storm. That's what can impact a wide variety of our technologies, from satellites in space and their operations, to communications, to GPS accuracy, to currents building up on the electric power grid, which is really what our country is concerned about. So we do a lot of support to this, aviation communities, NASA and space launch, and astronaut safety out there, among others.
So you were talking about these traveling all the way from the sun here. It's a long distance of travel, but they move pretty fast. How far out in advance can y'all start forecasting a potential geomagnetic storm heading towards the Earth?
Yeah, we focus on 1 to 3 days in advance. So our forecast is a 3-day forecast that goes out twice a day. But we do look ahead out 7 days for some of our core partners like the Air Force, who we really have a deep relationship with, because they do the same thing that we do, except they're focused on Department of Defense interests. So they take our forecast and tailor it down to those military concerns and needs, because space weather, as you can imagine, is extremely important to the military operations as well. But what we're looking for is certain features on the sun. And when we see some things begin to happen or build or strengthen, then we may revise our forecast a bit. But the interesting thing about space weather is forecasting space weather is extremely hard, very hard, because we don't know oftentimes when something's about to happen. We can forecast the probability that something will happen and how strong on that scale, for instance, that it might get to. But we have no way of knowing that something is imminent. Like, we don't know that a CME is about to blast from the sun. We don't know that a solar radiation storm is going to let loose and fling its particles to Earth. We don't know that a solar flare is about to blast the spectrum of energy that we measure and affect communications here on the sunlit side of Earth. We can only predict the probability that will happen. Some we get a little bit more lead time and we can put out warnings for, and some we just can't. We can only alert when they begin to happen.
That kind of ties in my next question. So, as forecasting the weather here on Earth, you want to fine tune exactly one location. You're talking about stuff coming off the sun, and we all think of the Earth as big, but in the whole array of space and our solar system, how hard is it to try to pinpoint where exactly these solar flares and these storms could end up going?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. We don't know the solar wind, this stream of energized particles and magnetic fields that are always flinging out from the sun all the time, regardless of what's happening. It's just the way the sun works. The sun's rotating as well. And so that complicates the picture. It can mess up what's a steady stream. Can be kind of look like a ballerina skirt doing a dance. It can be curvy up or down or sideways, and things happen. So it makes it very difficult. And forecasting where they're going to happen on the sun and what direction they're actually going to be going is very, very hard, because the sun is a sphere, right? So something could be on the southern side of the sun, and when we map it and we try to analyze it and it's expanding like a CME, and most of that energy may be directed south of Earth, but it expands very rapidly as they move out from the sun. So we could still get clipped by them. So our uncertainty level is oftentimes quite high, higher than we'd like, because of the limited amounts of instruments and science that we have in this field. But other times we get very, very confident, such as the storms in May. 7 CMEs directed towards Earth, and it was a pretty fair, good assumption. We had a high level of confidence that we were going to experience G4 levels of storming at the least.
To hear more about forecasting space weather, you can scan the QR code right there on your screen to watch on YouTube, or you can head over to our website, which is KWTX.com/degrees of science. Weather Extra will be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Beneath the world's oceans, a seismic event is occurring. Coral reefs, essential for maintaining marine life and coastal storm protection, are slowly dying in the warmer than normal sea waters. We now head out to Hawaii to see the underwater efforts to try to save them.
Hawaii's coral reefs are changing. Jared Taylor has been diving in these waters for several years and sees it.
Sad and disheartening.
He showed us the evidence off the coast of Honolulu. Once vivid colors are now gone.
It was really colorful probably 2 years ago, and now it's all bleached white.
It's not just Hawaii. According to NOAA, 84% of the world's coral reefs are now under heat stress that can cause bleaching. When the ocean warms, the algae that makes corals colorful are pushed out, leaving them as white skeletons.
It's heart-wrenching to see these huge areas, expanses of amazing biological diversity. It's like pulling the plug on a TV and it's just static. It just goes blank. and the recovery is extraordinarily slow to zero.
Over on the Big Island of Hawaii, marine scientist Greg Asner leads the Allen Coral Atlas, a program that maps coral bleaching with the goal of conservation.
And unfortunately, wherever you see green dots, there's coral reef that is bleaching today.
2024 was Earth's hottest year on record, on both land and sea, with the average ocean surface temperature hitting 70 degrees. The heat is speeding up coral deaths. Where it used to take years to kill a reef, now it can be weeks, sometimes days.
Here's the dead part.
The ugly part.
Ugly part. There are some heat waves where you and I would get in the water, might swim around for a while and actually start sweating in the water. Corals and other species that live on the seafloor are much more sensitive than we are.
Compared to Hawaii, the decline is worse in the Great Barrier Reef and Galapagos Islands. The problem is the most severe in the Caribbean and Florida. Reefs also create a natural seawall that can protect coastlines from storms, preventing billions of dollars in flood damage, according to NOAA. So at the end of the day, this is a dire situation, but not all hope is lost. There are some solutions. Underwater nurseries allow coral to repair and regrow. There's also a push to educate tourists to use sunscreens without chemicals harmful to corals.
The next gen, the folks that I'm training now, they could be the ones who could see the recovery phase if we get fossil fuels under control.
A global effort to preserve life and color underwater. Karen Hua, CBS News, South Kona, Hawaii.
Well, that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Weather Extra. Tune in again next weekend for another half hour of nothing but weather and science. We'll see you next time.